Hi there, I'm Johnny Rutherford, and this is The Skinny.
From the Fatheads Eyewear Studios in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny. Brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, General Tire, and Dream Giveaway. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by General Tire. It's more than just a slogan. Anywhere is possible with General Tire. General Tire's Grabber X3 mud terrain tire offers aggressive styling and is engineered for durability with innovative performance features that are ready to carry you through extreme mud, dirt, and rock-covered terrain. For extreme traction that's ready for anything and rugged styling to match, look no further than the Grabber X3. Make your anywhere possible by visiting GeneralTire.com today. Welcome to The Skinny. Boy, do we have a big show coming your way today. Ken Stout, Rico, Elmore, as always. Just a couple of goofballs here in Speedway, and we're too foolish to quit, so we just keep swinging the bat. And every now and again, we land on some motorsports royalty. To help us out, whenever you get a guest this big, we brought in Bones. He has, he's the historian, right? He's the author. So we go to some backup for a big-time guy that has joined us here in the studio. He is a three-time Indianapolis 500 winner. He's an IndyCar champion. He's part of 4 Motorsports Hall of Fames, including the International Motorsports Hall of Fame, affectionately known as Lone Star JR. Born in Kansas, nonetheless, we welcome Johnny Rutherford here to the show. Johnny?
Well, thank you. You did have to say that. You know, when Foyt found out that I was born in Kansas, he said, Rutherford? You mean to say I'm the only Texan that's ever won the Indianapolis 500?
Right back in your face, and that's exactly what you would expect out of AJ, right?
Yes, for sure.
Boy, we can't thank you enough for making the time to join us here on the show. I mean, truly motorsports royalty, and what a great ambassador for the sport you've been all along the way. Of course, we'll focus on your career here a little bit and some of the stories that you've had, but man, what an amazing career.
Well, it was all stemmed from a young man, a kid, 8, 9 years old, watching midget race cars in Tulsa, Oklahoma, long before the Chili Bowl, but right after the war, and it was hooked. I just, that was it. I wanted to drive race cars when I grew up, and I didn't start racing until I was 21, and had the club my hot rod club helped me build my first race car, and went to the old Dallas Devil's Bowl Speedway and started my career in 1959, and I just was very fortunate in getting opportunities that I was able to take advantage of and move right up the ladder, and I started racing in 59 and came to the Speedway and made the race in 63. So I was really wanted to, that was what my dream was to come to the Speedway and to race.
Wow, I find that very interesting because I never thought of the twist of the Hot Rod Club. I mean, by the time I was growing up, the Hot Rod Clubs were still there, but they weren't as significant as they were back in the day. But I didn't realize they held that they were that involved. So they would literally help a young man build a car together, all of those members of the Hot Rod Clubs. And, of course, it was such a huge thing back in the day, right? But they helped you build your first race car and launch your career. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, that was kind of the way things were, as a bunch of young men with their 40 Ford Coupes or their 32, Ford 3 windows, and it was guys that were like cars, gearheads, they call them today, and it was interesting in that 3 or 4 of them were my pit crew, and we went to the Devil's Bowl in Dallas, and I started racing, and every Friday night, and that was just part of the situation. You wanted to do this, you got out there. I figured out after a year of owning my own car and racing, that really wasn't the thing to do. It was semi-expensive for a young man back then, and that was the opportunity for me to look for a car to drive at the Devil's Bowl, and I found one. And it was rather unique in it. It was a 38 Chevrolet frame, which you wouldn't relate to racing at all, and had a 49 Crosley body on it, and a 6-cylinder International pickup truck engine in it.
Oh, wow.
Now, the thing was, when he got the engine to run, had a lot of torque and it was good, but he had trouble trying to get it to run most Friday nights. So anyway, I drove the car for half a season, and Jim McElreath and I left and came up into the Midwest to get on the fair circuit.
Johnny, those cars that you started in, I don't know if they call them jalopies down your way or modifieds, but Parnelli, several guys came out of the Los Angeles jalopy scene. To look at those cars and the early cars that you had, it doesn't seem like anything there would correlate to higher levels of racing. But what did they teach you?
I guess how to race is the big thing. You know that you're out there racing with for position with some guys, and it's that's the start of it, and as you get more time on the track and get acquainted with the race car and what it's capable of doing, my car in particular and most of them there, because of the frames on a Chevrolet, were deeper channel than a Ford. And so they made a better race car frame, a little stiffer. But I had a 32 Chevrolet coupe, and it was a 5-window. It had been a race car at one time, but it had been parked at a closed-down service station in Grapevine, Texas.
Really?
Yeah. And I saw it there and checked on it and bought it and towed it back to the hot rod, the clubhouse where we had the hot rod club, and we started to work on it.
Fantastic.
That is awesome.
Yeah, you could narrow the body 6 inches and shorten it 6 inches. So we took the window post out between the opera window and the passenger or driver's window, and all through the center. Anyway, it made a start.
And the wheel-to-wheel action, I guess, was probably enough to give you confidence and to teach you battle.
Well, yes, it was. It was a situation where the funniest thing I have ever seen or heard of in racing, believe it or not, after all these years, was still that first year at the Devil's Bowl. I happened to be pitted in the infield in the third turn, so I had a grandstand seat for the witness this. Cars were racing, and the Devil's Bowl was built in a rock quarry, right. And it was the first and second turn were on normal terrain level, and then it kind of went off downhill, not a steep descent, but just downhill to turn 3, which was down in the quarry and around, and there was a heat race out running, and coming off of turn 2 down the back stretch downhill, one of the cars lost a wheel, and it just came off perfect. You could see it down the air, hit the guardrail and bounced, and went right over the catch fence in front of the grandstand up there, and went over that and came down and bounced on the footpath in front, bounced and started up through the grandstand.
Right.
Well, what I witnessed then was what Moses saw when he parted the Red Sea. You know, the fans just all split apart, and it bounced right up through. And there was a couple at the top, on the top of the stands, and the guy had an amber bottle in his hand.
Oh boy!
And she had her arm linked in his, and just as it bounced far enough in front of them and started over, it would have been just over their heads. This guy yelled, "I've got it!"
Oh, no.
And it was now you see him, now you don't, because he grabbed that thing as it went over their heads.
Oh my God!
And it pulled him off of the back of the grandstands. Fortunately, it wasn't real tall, and they landed on the hood of a car and
Oh my God!
back behind. But I can still see that wheel heading up through the stands, and this guy yelling, "I've got it!" and then
Oh my
disappearing.
God! Yeah.
Johnny Rutherford gold right there, man. That is awesome.
I've got it. I'd be like, get out of the way. It's coming. It's like,
I don't know why all you guys are getting out of the way, man. Just catch it.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's hilarious.
Wow.
So 5 years from the start of your career, and you find yourself at the big track, and then you immediately broke trends that had lasted throughout the entire industry whenever you met your future wife while testing at the Speedway in '63.
Yes, that is true. Speedway's been very, very good to me, and but it was, yes, I just was on the fourth phase of my driver's test, and we rolled the car out on the pit apron, and I just leaned over and dropped my helmet in the seat and looked up, and there was this cute little blonde standing there at the fence, and our stories vary here because I winked at her, and I said she winked back. She says, "No, we waved." Like,
Yeah.
what's the difference? A wink and a wink and a wave. Anyway,
It's a W.
Bless her heart. She did, wave, I guess. And so anyway, I went on down to do my test. Did it from the north end of the pit lane back then, and so I went out and we had a problem, and came in, and I thought because of the problem, Harlan Fangler might tell me to go back to Texas and get some more experience or something.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, he was there with his red snap brim cap hat on, and he said, "You know what you did wrong?" And I said, "I spun in the first turn." And I said, "Yes, sir. I just got it in there a little high, and I just sawed it down, and it got away from me and spun. Didn't hit anything. Got a toe start, went back to the pits. But anyway, got all, that. And he said, "Well, you can finish your test tomorrow." Okay, thank you, sir. So
kind of uncommon, right? Usually they'd wave you off, right?
Sometimes I've seen drivers that they were told to get more experience and then come back. So anyway, I'm walking back, and back then when you came through Gasoline Alley from the garages, if you were walking toward the track, on the left side was Firestone, and they checked tires as you went out, and the other side was a first aid station. Goodyear hadn't arrived yet, so that was theirs when they got here. And so, but anyway, it was a first aid station, and I didn't know that Betty was a registered nurse.
Right.
I had only seen her once, and so I.
And you winked at her.
Yeah, and she waved. She waved back. That's how it went. Anyway, I walked up, and she was standing there talking to friends in the doorway, and first words I ever said to her was, "Haven't I seen you someplace before?"
That's smooth.
That's pretty smooth.
Cool, man. Anyway, she gave me her telephone number. I asked her if she wanted to go out to dinner that evening. She said, "No, I've had plans." So I got her phone number, and it was, almost love at first sight, I guess. It'd have to almost say that, because it was
For you or her or both?
Both. Both.
I love
she,
it.
Yeah.
The only reason she didn't go out with me that first night, she said, was she wanted to find out if I was married.
Right.
Because a lot
Those
of
race car drivers, you never know, man.
I won't
Never.
name any names, Bobby Unser.
God rest his soul.
Yeah, a lot of drivers would say they were separated from their wives.
Yeah.
They were in Albuquerque and
Yeah. Separated for a week or so.
Johnny, I'm curious. Back then, it's almost legendary that there were no motels or hotels, or very few around here, and so many drivers ended up staying with local families.
Yes,
Did you go through that same thing when you first came here?
I did. Even when I was running IMCA and traveling, Don Shepard and I drove his car for the owner, and we always looked for places, and I found one, and there was 2 or 3 other drivers in there, and it was kind of sad. Up for a couple of year period there, I'd go away to run Minneapolis or Cedar Rapids or someplace in IMCA, come back in, and they'd have all of his stuff piled on his bed because he got killed at Langhorne, or he got killed at New Bremen, or and Donnie Davis was one of them, and I can't recall it. Time marches on, but anyway, that's kind of the way it was back then.
Pretty
It was-
daunting.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the reason I brought up you meeting your wife there and saying you broke down some barriers is much like the color green was. It was really a big myth that women were bad luck in the pits.
She was the first one here.
You best not have told that to Betty. She was the first one.
Right.
She got the barrier lowered, and
I love it.
wives could get into the pits.
Yeah, I mean that's really why I brought the story up, because it
that's huge.
was groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah,
that-
wives or Linda Vaughn.
Yeah. Did any did any of the drivers give you a hard time about that? About your wife coming in? This
No.
was like an intrusion at first.
No, it really wasn't. They only, even the color green. My gosh, it looks like you got a free bag of tobacco or a green race car nowadays. It's different. Times change and move on. But anyway, Betty and I met the first part of May, and we were engaged the first part of June.
Wow.
And
That's
we were
awesome.
married July the 7th,
A new track record.
1963.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And
Wow.
and it lasted nearly 56 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
super, super cool, my friend. We're going to take a quick break here and pause for the cause, give our sponsors a little bit of love, and we'll be right back on the other side. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Toyota. As we take a look at your career, I mean, what was super, and we've talked about this so many times, people like AJ and Parnelli, and your era is you guys drove everything. If there was a race car, you guys drove it. So great success, championship and sprint cars. In fact, in Sprint Car Hall of Fame, you were also starting in cup cars, I guess stock cars, they called them back in the day. So, competed in the Daytona 500, and then, of course, IndyCar as well. Did you have a favorite, or were you just happy being in a race car?
Well, I think for any driver, it's what's next week? What are we driving? It's a midget or a sprint car or a championship dirt car or a late model stock car. I was running the fair circuit, IMCA, International Motor Contest Association, in 60, 61, and 62. 3 years. Was leading the points, and I think I could have won the IMCA championship in 62, but I had an opportunity to come to USAC and maybe a shot at being for the Indianapolis, to get to Indianapolis. And it was different then because of the progression that what you took to get to Indianapolis as what it is today. If you have driven a Formula One car around the track one time,
Yeah.
you can come run. Yeah, but it's different. But racing. Tony Kanaan asked me one time, just after he got over here from Brazil, he said, "What did you guys do to stay in shape?" I said, "Tony, we ran 3 nights a week,
yeah.
In cars without power steering,
Right.
and so it was, that's the way it was, and it was, I loved it. It was great to be able to run that, and you make your move into, then it was USAC, and once you made the move to protect the name of the Indianapolis 500 from all of the guys that would like to come run from outlaw racing, once you joined USAC, you couldn't deviate, you couldn't go back. You had to run midgets or sprint cars, or even they had stock cars back then too. So
One of the great stories I've ever heard about the fair circuit, and for people that don't know, I mean, you guys often ran a Friday here and then Saturday hundreds of miles away, but you've had so many great traveling stories that you might not remember this one, but the truck driver, you stopped in a place, you were towing somewhere alone.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead with that.
Yeah. Well, when you said truck driver, I thought, we didn't have trucks.
No.
then. We had an open trailer
Right.
with a race car on it and a pickup or
Well, the fella at the diner who really drove a truck.
right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I was driving. I don't know where it was, but we'd drive all night to get there in the morning and lay back across the back seat and get an hour of sleep, or if we could get it. But anyway, I stopped in this truck stop restaurant and was going to get a cup of coffee, something to try to keep me awake. And went in, sat down, and got the coffee, and said something to the waitress that, boy, I really need something to keep me awake. And his truck driver standing at the jukebox had been playing music and kind of jigging, and he just spun around on his heels and said, "Man, I've got a pill here that'll keep you awake the rest of your life." And it was a little blue football-shaped thing. And I took one, and sure enough, yeah, it was a couple of days before I went to sleep.
Did you keep jumping every restart for the next week? All nervous. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, that's wow.
The 64 race, I think you're always going to be, obviously a tragic race, 1964.
Yeah.
You've always been one of those guys who's linked with that race by virtue of the fact that you narrowly escaped that wreck.
Yes.
Can you go through that a little bit?
Well, Bobby Unser and I were the luckiest two drivers that day. He came through behind me. I have a I have a picture that a fan snapped, and it was Davy's car backing up to the outside wall, this giant black and red, flames and curtain drawn, and as Eddie was just before his impact. and I was right on his bumper with my foot buried up to the knee in brake pedal, trying to get slowed down. And at the last instant, Eddie kind of veered a little to the left, thinking the car was right in, but he really just center punched Davy. And when he impacted, the back of his car reared up in the air, and it put a skid mark, the tire tread width, up the nose of my Watson Roadster. And but I went under Eddie and up over Davy and I went down the next day and looked and put tire marks on top of the wall where it ricocheted me back onto the racetrack. And I was trying to get the transmission unlocked and put it back in first gear. There were 2 speeds, so I was going to put it in first and take off. And still flames from the burning gasoline. That both of those cars were burning gasoline, right. Only 2 in the race, and that's when we outlawed gasoline as a fuel for the 500. And so I was getting mine shifted and going, and I hear an engine kind of screaming. Look over, and here comes Unser. Right. He had hit Ronnie Duman and caught him on fire and spun him out and knocked the steering out on the Novi he was driving, and it came across, and he hit me in the left rear corner. Had he not done that, I could have gone on. I could have finished the race, and it was just very tragic. Eddie was good friends with everybody, and everybody liked Eddie, and Davey was a rookie, brand new. Drove very hard. When green flag dropped, he was the row behind me, and Eddie was beside me. And so we got the green flag and went into the first turn, and and Eddie moved ahead of me, and I thought, that's good. Eddie usually goes to the front, so I'll just follow him if I can. So I'm all set on that, and go over through turn 2, and this car comes yodeling by me with left rears in the grass and kicking up, whatever, and trying to hang on to it and, driving off. And it was Davey McDonald. And that's the way he drove. Every time you ever saw him at Riverside or anywhere where he was running sports cars, he was sideways. He just stood on it. But anyway, he went on down, and when he did that, I thought, well, there goes the guy that either win this thing or crash. Well, we got to turn 4, and he crashed. And started that melee. It was not, it's just something you experience, and bang, it like tattoos itself in your brain. Coming around turn 4, I can still see Eddie was driving the
Red Ball
Special Halibran. Well, they had the fluorescent red paint, and he had a circle, or not a circle, but a ball painted on top of his helmet, and I could see that on either side of the roll bars. He was coming around the corner, like, where am I going to go now? And it was just bang, and it was started and done with, and it was terrible. I drove I drove around after Unser hit me, drove around the track and going across the short chute in between 1 and 2. Bob Veith pulled up beside me and pointed, to the infield, and I said I'm okay, and he could see the fuel. That when Unser hit me, it fractured the mounting points of the fuel tank, and it didn't have cells in, but it was leaking. And he swerved at me and pointed again, and I said I'm okay, and he went on to catch up to the field going ahead. And so I drove it around. I thought, well, I hadn't been in a fire yet, so I pull in. There's a guy with these pith helmet and fire extinguisher there, and I pull up, kick it out of gear, and I keep it running. I said, "Is this thing leaking anything or burning?" And he looked it over and says, "Nope." I said, "Thank you," and put her in gear and drove off back up on the North Short Chute. And we came around, and as I came around the corner, I was staying down low, and pulled up, and Don Branson was there, and he was motioning for me to stop. So I stopped, kicked it out of gear, shut the fuel off, and shut the engine off, and unhooked, and got out of the car. As I stepped out, I could see the fuel on the ground leaking out, and 2 firemen came over and stood there. And I turned and started up toward the incident, and Don Branson grabbed me by the arm. He says, "You don't want to go up there." I said, "You're probably right, Don." Yeah. I said, "Look at my neck." And then, I said, "It feels like maybe it got burned." And leaned forward, and when I hit the incident, my head forward, the gasoline in the air was, had 2nd-degree burns on the back of my neck, and he put me in an ambulance, and I went to the hospital.
I mean, maybe the luckiest wreck of all time was that wreck within a wreck when Bobby hit you, because it kind of knocked you both free of the fire.
Yeah, I was already
you were good to go
past that, and so was he.
Yeah.
He was just out of control and came across the track, and
Gotcha.
It hit me so hard, the granny that holds you up in the side of the seat, the top tube of the frame is about here. It was bent out over, so it was a pretty good hit.
Wow.
An incident that both Davey McDonald and Eddie Sachs lost their life in, and unfortunately it was just all too common back in the day, and of course safety advancements just were not what they are now, but it was just unfortunately part of the game.
Yes, well, I started when sex was safe and racing was dangerous.
This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Rhino Classifieds. Tired of all those ads and random stuff that shows up when you're looking to buy or sell your car parts? Rhino Classifieds was created just for you. Welcome to a streamlined buying and selling app created by racers for racers and race fans. Modified cars, classic cars, race cars, that special big block you need, the trailer to move your baby around the country in. We got you at rhino.co. Once again, welcome back to The Skinny. We have Johnny Rutherford on the show here. Couldn't be more excited about it. In fact, the entire staff really geeked up to see that JR was coming in. Can't thank you enough. As we continue to talk about your career, of course, we're only going to graze over a few things here in the small amount of time that we have to work with. But a lot of people associate you with your 3 wins at Indianapolis 500, but it wasn't easy getting there. In fact, I believe it was your first maybe 9 starts that you didn't even finish the race. And finally, in your 10th start, I think you finished inside of the top 10. And then, of course, the following year you came out here and you won the thing. But listening to you talk so far, you got to the big race pretty quickly. But once you got there, boy, you had to pay your dues.
Yes, that is a known fact. This Indianapolis Motor Speedway is incredible, and I'm watching the McLaren team that has a room full of engineers.
Somebody you raced with, by the way, for 7 years you were with McLaren.
Yes,
believe,
but
7
not like
consecutive
that.
years.
Yeah.
It was Tyler Alexander and 5 other guys in the team, and that was it. The cars were relatively simple by comparison. Today they're so complex that concerned me to see a room full of engineers that don't know a thing in the world about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and all of the curves that old lady can throw you. It is incredible, and it's going to be interesting to see, just exactly how it all comes to pass.
And in your era, cars broke down. I mean, engines broke, suspensions broke. They weren't as bulletproof as they are now, and I think that speaks to that first 9 races DNFs. You know.
Yes, it was a a lot simpler, and of course when I came here, I raced the first 2 years in roadsters. You know, the Watson Roadster, Offenhauser engine, and they were the same as our sprint cars. You know, and that's what we'd raced for years, and so racing a sprint car and coming here was just racing a bigger sprint car that went a lot faster.
Once you started getting into the second half of the 60s, you're with the Michener team, which I think was actually the forerunner of the Patrick team.
Yes.
How was that situation? I mean, you were gaining speed all the time, front row guy.
It was just another step, you know, in the ladder to the top. But Walt Michener and his sons and ultimately Patrick, you know, they were the typical car owner of that period. You know, the car owner was had some money and he liked racing, particularly the Indianapolis 500. So it was a situation where they liked what they were investing in, and it was a chance for JR to race their car.
And then you move into the glory years. I mean, the McLaren years.
Yes.
How does to me, in reading as much as I have about that era, when the McLaren guys first came over, it was very much an English team. How quickly did it become an Anglo-American team?
Tyler Alexander was born in Massachusetts, and so he was already. But there's a lot of guys that went to England and really liked that situation over there, and so they had the opportunity to stay there most of the time, or come back and race here during the season, and then go home to their shop or their situation. But it was a deal. It came along through Herb Porter, who I had driven for a couple of years and ran the first Chevrolet-powered dirt car in USAC. And anyway, I got...
what year would that have been?
That would have been 64, 65.
I was just wondering, I mean, because Chevrolet almost dominates it now. You know what I mean? That's what runs everything now in that series.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I don't even know what the displacement was on the Chevy engine in a dirt car, but there wasn't anybody else with an Offenhauser that could beat me to the first turn on the green flag. Boy, it just dug in and got it. It was incredible. Pardon me. But anyway, what were we?
Just the McLaren guys.
Yeah, the McLaren. Herb Porter had talked with Teddy Mayer, who was running McLaren at the time, and he knew that Teddy was coming to town to interview a driver, and Herb very much sold Teddy on talking with me.
Right.
And so I talked to Teddy on the phone, and he said, "I'll meet you at the for breakfast at the Holiday Inn at such and such." And so I did, and we hammered out a deal, and I went to work for McLaren.
Yeah.
And I had always told Betty that if I ever find anybody that wants to go racing as badly as I do, we'll be winners. And boom.
That was the group.
They brought, it's kind of an unnerving story in the beginning. They brought the car to the Speedway and to test in January or February, probably February. And I drove the car for 3 days at the Speedway, and we could not get it to stop pushing or understeering. And Tyler had changed everything but the number and the paint job, trying to get it to resolve this, and stop understeering or pushing. And so that was it. And they sent took the car away. They brought this same car, old car, not old, but their car. We raced at Trenton before the Speedway, and I'd spun the thing and tagged the wall at Trenton in the fourth turn, and really upset me, that I had brand new ride, and here I was spun and crashed. And Tyler Alexander was a great crew chief, great mechanic, smart guy. And I apologized to everybody in the crew at least 2 times, and upset with myself. And I just did it again with Tyler, and he just put his hands on my shoulders and looked me square in the eye, and he says, "Rutherford, if you don't keep count, we won't either."
Perfect. That's
Wow.
support.
Set the tone right there.
Yeah.
And that was the one we went. They brought the car back to the Speedway for the month of May. It was looked the same, body work and everything. Everything was same. Had no idea that it wasn't the same car that wouldn't quit pushing.
Right.
And so I got in the car to go out and shake it down, test it, and did a couple of shakedown runs. Felt okay. And so we went out 3rd time or 4th time, and I like to feel a race car and see how much it'll give me. What can I think you're going to do? And I went out, and it's the first time I'd ever been able to go flat-footed all the way around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
What a feeling that had to be for the first time.
Incredible!
Yeah.
We were the first team to first team to unofficially go 200 miles an hour.
Right.
We had 3 or 4 sessions at 200, 200.1, 200 even, and we just were excited that we could maybe break the barrier at the Speedway at 200. Well, everything was good Saturday for the running for the pole. Weather changed a little bit. The old lady threw us another curve, and anyway, went out, and first lap was 199. And the next 3 were 198s. And it was just enough that it was, 198 average, new track record starting on the pole.
Yeah.
And
I had you at 199.071, just missing that 200 mile per hour mark.
Yeah.
Did not realize you had covered it in testing, though. That had to be so frustrating to know you were capable. It just needed a little bit of luck.
We knew after you've run here a while, whatever you expect, don't expect it.
I think that's the best line that Scott Dixon said when he was in. He goes, "That's Indy."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, don't expect it.
Yeah, and we've heard a number of people throughout, even this past week, say, this racetrack doesn't owe us anything. You just go out and you earn everything you get. But another saying that I'd heard was the racetrack chooses who wins here.
Yeah,
she chooses
that's
who
true.
wins.
Yeah. There have never been a 3-in-a-row winner.
Right.
Al Unser's doubled.
Yeah.
And Castroneves doubled. I was on the verge of being the first 3-time winner in 75.
Yeah.
When the rains came, and Tyler had called me in, and I've often wondered, I still wonder, if I could have stretched to the rain like Unser did. And probably could have, but that was a done deal.
But that period, 74, 75, 76, I mean, a win, a second, and a win,
Yeah.
You're on top of the world at that point.
Oh yes, yes, and then it was it was as good as it can be.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I say. I could have been the first three in a row winner, but the old lady said,
Said it ain't happening.
not this time.
And for somebody to put 3 in a row together now,
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's.
yeah.
Well, and
I
there's
mean, it was tough
Scott
then.
Dixon has the best opportunity.
That's who Ken spots for. So of course it is.
Man, he's just well. I mean, you guys know. I mean, the team and the driver, the immense amount of respect from everybody else in the paddock for that guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
absolutely incredible.
But as a person too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
racer, but
Yeah.
as an individual, he is
Yep.
a great guy.
In and out of the race car,
And
everybody agrees.
So we had him on the show, Johnny, and it was great because we always ask, and you started out with it, which I love hearing. How did you get started? Where did
Yeah.
this all start?
Yeah.
And Dixon starts talking about racing in New Zealand, and he goes into this whole story about racing the white car. That's all he called it, was the white car. I don't think he knew what it was, but anyhow, he's 13, something like that, and he's racing with a 46-year-old in this endurance race. He goes around this turn and barrel rolls this car. I mean, this is some little, like Nissan-looking thing, right? He gets out of the car as he's telling the story. He gets out of the car. He has a floral cushion duct taped around him so he can set up far enough in the seat to
Reach
run the
the pedals.
pedals.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was telling the whole story. I'm like, I love it. I mean, you can't make it up, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the Devil's Bowl you were talking about, still there,
Yeah.
and Laney. I can't remember Laney's last
Edwards.
name. Laney Edwards' wife still,
Bev, yeah.
still has it, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fame there. And you were talking about Firestone being on the left when you walked out Gasoline Alley. Well, I remember I was in 3rd or 4th grade. Well, for some reason, they made my mom go with me on this field trip. Apparently, I was unruly and needed somebody else to
Understandable.
try to hold me in. And so my mom, I said, I need to go to the bathroom, which really meant I want to go walk around and check stuff out,
Yeah.
because everybody's up in the stands. Well, the car, we're on the front stretch. There's just really not a lot to see. So I want to walk around. Well, I walk down and I'm at we're right by Gasoline Alley, and I see AJ. So, this is, 40 years ago. And I see AJ, and I'm like, I got this little piece of paper, and I'm like, I'm going to get his autograph. He's in there, MF and Firestone, up one side and down the other.
Your timing was good, huh?
Because, and I wasn't going to stop. I was getting his autograph. It didn't matter what he was doing, But it was hilarious, and I walked up, and I said, and I mean, he walks out of there, and he is mad. I mean, out of his mind, pissed.
AJ, mad?
I mean, it was
Must
the
have been a
first,
Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday.
yeah, it started in with a Y with it
Yeah.
anyhow. But I said, excuse me. I said, Mr. Foyt, can I have your autograph? No problem, son. Signed it and just kept on going. And I mean, but that's the thing that a lot of people miss in Indy or had missed because, it was all, there's still a lot of characters there. Don't get me wrong, but man, there's no Johnny Rutherfords. There's no Uncle Bobby. There's no AJ. That was like a cast of characters, man. I mean, there was some wild stuff there.
Yeah,
so.
there was a group of us, and AJ retired, and everybody. Mario announced another year he was going to retire, and we just kept
Like dominoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Falling. And I finally got to the point. Al Unser had made his move, said he was retiring, and Betty and I discussed it, and I said, because she always told me, if you retire, you're not ever coming back.
Yeah.
You just don't do that. Too many guys did and paid for it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said, okay, I'm gonna retire, and I just walked over to the Foyt's garage. I said, AJ, have you got a car I can use to run my last lap around here? I'm going to retire. He never hesitated, spun around, asked his crew chief, is that car ready to run? And he said, yes. He said, get it ready for Rutherford to take his last laps in. And it was the same car that Foyt had retired in the year before.
He's got a big heart that way, I think. He wanted to do that.
Yeah, he does. You got to know AJ and how to approach him, you know.
Yeah.
But he did, got the car ready. I made 2 laps around the speedway and retired. And that was it. And it was, you know, as I rolled out of the pit lane onto the track, so many memories came flooding back, you know, just, you know, all of the times that I had done that, been there, and it was, you know, it was good.
Has to be emotional.
And
When
it's
I
so-
was reading, you know, trying to get up to speed here for today, you know, the crowd that was back then was immense. I mean, they're talking about 300,000 people inside of that place. I mean, the atmosphere had to be incredible.
Yeah, it was. It was so different that you practice, you know, every day, and you qualify. And race day here was the largest attended sporting event in the world.
Right. Still
I don't
is.
know that it still is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
still
I think
is.
it still is.
And first day of qualifying for the pole was the second
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And it was 250,000 people here
Yeah.
for that. Well, qualifying, you know, you're intense and everything is focused on getting the job done to qualify. But race day, when you come out here as a rookie and you get in your car on the grid and settle back and look down into that first turn, it's a sea of color, you know, and it's different.
Yeah.
And the racetrack narrows down
Yeah.
about a car width or
Yeah.
more. And it's an experience, and it's something you know, you just have to endure one time to have it
Yeah.
locked on you.
I try to, I just can't find the words to explain to somebody, even if you're a motorsports fan, but if you've not been to the racetrack and you've not watched these cars go around and qualify, I try to explain to them just how small that racetrack is. I mean, when you look at that track, it's massive, it's huge, and I just think human nature is like, oh, there's plenty of racing room. But when I tell these guys, when I'm up spotting and I watch these guys go through turn 3, they're within a half an inch of where they were the previous lap every single time with that left front tire now below the white line, which was taboo, I know, back in the day, but now right up against the curb. And if you hit the curb, you're in big-time trouble. But the best way I can explain it to my friends now is to say that we went through all of last week. They've been on that track for 6 days. Well, a couple of days. Well, they practiced every day, but 6 days, and I've yet to see one time where anybody went through a turn side by side. And they would be doing it at any time given the opportunity they could. But here, that immense respect for that wall, knowing that that groove is 1.5 cars wide, and if you want to make it too wide, you better be ready to pay the price.
It will be.
Yeah.
It will be too wide because practice is different than racing.
Yeah.
You know, racing is a whole new game, a whole new challenge, and to get out there and lay back because you can't pass because it's not wide enough, you go make it wide enough.
If I'm not mistaken, I maybe this has since been surpassed, but I have here in 1986 you won the Michigan 500 at age 48, and to this day still the oldest winner of a 500-mile race.
Huh. I have heard that, and but I don't know. I saw that listed in the stock car race the other day, drivers, and one of their drivers was
Maybe Harry Gant. Maybe.
yeah,
He might have
Harry
been a
Gant
little-
might have been 48, 47, 48.
Yeah, but when you have those fenders on, you can be a little older.
Yeah.
You know? Curb feelers. Johnny,
an
what-
incredible run too. I also have here 73 to 81, 9 straight seasons with a victory, making you one of just 6 drivers in IndyCar history to accomplish that goal.
Yes,
Not bad.
I'm proud of that. Very proud of that.
One thing that interests me is you've gotten to drive for not just great car owners, but when you look at one of the mad scientists of sprint car racing was Wally Muskowski. One of the mad scientists of stock car racing was Smokey Yunick. One of the mad scientists of Indy cars was Jim Hall. To drive for such thinkers, I mean, does that bring your game up a little? Does it intrigue you? Or are you saying, boy, what am I going to have when we get to the track? What are they going to give me? What's Smokey Yunick going to give me at Daytona?
Yeah. I think the fact that you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Of course, I was by the time I got to the Chaparral and Jim Hall, smart man, thinker. He told me he had his first Chaparral, which was a front engine car, looked much like a Jaguar,
Sports car, yeah.
sports
Yeah.
car, the C model, I think it is, anyway. He said they were testing it on his racetrack, Rattlesnake Raceway, and down the long straightaway, he said the front of the car would get lift, and he said you could almost turn the steering wheel lock to lock,
Have fun.
and not have it accomplish
Right.
anything. It wouldn't do much, and it concerned him. Obviously.
It would.
And he went back in the shop, and he's looking at some sheet metal or aluminum standing by the door, and he got an idea, and he created the first chin spoiler. Locked the nose of the car down. Aha, aerodynamics.
Wow.
That's, got him
Amazing.
started. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break here, and once again, we'll be right back. We'll wrap things up here with Johnny Rutherford. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Dream Giveaway. Dream Giveaway has been giving away high-end American muscle cars to raise money for charity since 2007. Dream Giveaway is known for giving away classic and new muscle and paying the federal taxes so the winners don't have to. For $25, you can jump in the game, and part of that goes to charity. You'll have a chance at winning some of the coolest cars on the planet. Check it out at dreamgiveaway.com. Once again, welcome back to The Skinny. Johnny Rutherford in the house here. A huge show, and this is what you get in the month of May in the Indianapolis area. Once again, thanks for joining us, Johnny. Super, super cool for you to find the time as we get into this last segment here. We'll wrap things up. Bones, I know you had one more question you wanted to ask him.
I was thinking that of the cars you've driven here, you've driven maybe the most stuck car there's ever been with that first Chaparral. And then just 3 years later, in '83, you drive a car, the Wildcat, the '83 Wildcat, that some people still remember as being, and God, great people working on the thing, but some people still remember as being one of the most evil race cars ever in that era.
Oh, it
I mean, that's a
Yes.
difference. A good car and a great car and a horrible car.
well, the design, the guy that Pat hired to build the car for him, design it and build it, copied the Chaparral. But he did some things different. And it was, best I can describe the car as you could, coming down the front straightaway, you could drive it to the start-finish line, and it would drive you the rest of the way
wow.
to turn one.
Yeah.
You had no idea if it was going to go inside or go to the outside wall or what. It was a terrible race car.
Yeah.
And, of course, I ended up crashing it between 3 and 4 and breaking an ankle. And it was just one of those periods in your career that you just as soon forget, but you can't.
And as a driver, you don't know until you get in that thing.
Yeah, it's that was one of the periods, and of course after driving for McLaren for 7 years, and then Jim Hall for 3 years in the Chaparral team, when that all went away, I was left to try to put together, somebody I could drive for.
Yeah.
And I never was able to find the same quality of racing from anybody else.
That level of magic and that connection.
That chemistry,
Yeah.
that is so important.
Yes. So
So as I rattle off some of these names here, pick anyone you want. Give us a couple of good stories. You raced with the who's who. It's amazing when you look back at it. But Roger McCluskey, Wally Dallenbach, Vukovic, Andretti, Mosley, Johncock, Bentonhausen, Ruby, Foyt, the Unsers, of course. The list just goes on and on of badasses that you were competing with.
They were all racers. You get to this place, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and you've got to be a racer. If you're not, then you might as well not even go in the place. But all of those guys you named were racers and were good. Some had different things about them, like Mario. Mario would run your ass through the infield if he got a chance, because that's racing. And
Aggressive, yeah.
Yeah, it's different. And AJ, in '74 when I won my first one, AJ and I raced hard for 40 laps or 50 laps maybe, and I never squeezed him, pushed him to try to get past him. We raced clean, and he raced back clean, and that was AJ. He's the champion that he is, and Bobby Unser would race you as hard as anybody out there. Al Unser was usually already gone. He was gone leading, and you didn't have a chance. I've always said if I were a car owner and I wanted to hire the best driver I could for my car, I'd hire Al Unser Sr. He is very good.
Especially here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that patience and...
Yeah. He's in now?
No, I said it's...
Oh.
For Al at races like this, these 500-mile races, he just had that right mindset.
Oh, yes.
It's 500
Yes.
miles. We got to be there.
Yep.
Parnelli had said for years that you could look at his own stuff or Mario's stuff at the end of a race, and it was worn out. Where Big Al, he said we could have run another 500 miles.
Yeah.
He had the knack.
That was the problem with Mario, is he could have been a 6-time winner
Yeah.
at this race,
Yeah.
but he just drove the car so hard that it finally gave up on him.
You knew all of those guys that you raced with. That's what a good race car driver does. He knows who he's racing against at any given time. Were there certain buttons you could push, say like a Mario, where you could wind him up and get him to make some sort of mental mistake?
No, I don't think any of those guys you could get them to make mental mistakes in a race car at high speed. The thing that might have the only way you could really get anybody is if you're smart enough to get them lined up and pick them on a slow car.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do that, then you're ahead of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got to watch out, because they'll do the same thing to you. So it's fun. That's the part I miss about it is working with the crew.
Right.
The way we did back then was Tyler and I would go out, take the car out, and set it up.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's doing this. He would say, "Okay, let's do this," and we'd wind up, right to the ready to race point.
It's been a great run here for sure, and man, we just can't thank Johnny Rutherford enough. One of the most successful race car drivers of all time at the absolute highest level of the game, against some of the absolute best as well that he competed against. An incredible career, an incredible ambassador for the sport of racing, and certainly an IndyCar. We can't thank you enough for finding the time to come in here and sit with us. It is quite an honor, my friend. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it very much. Brought back a lot of memories.
Great stuff. We'll see you next time on The Skinny. Thanks for being with us here on The Skinny. This episode has been brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, Dream Giveaway, and General Tire. For the latest in sunglasses, optical frames, accessories, and apparel, be sure to check out fatheads.com. That's Fatheads with a Z. Production facilities provided by Fatheads Eyewear Studios. All rights reserved.